state-owned corporations. Recently, we hear the CAMAIRCO will be privatized not too long from now, giving so much maybe mismanagement and many other things. And so they are making sure that the aircraft of the CAMAIRCO are well arranged for privatization. And some years back, we heard of some parts of CDC being privatized, and Pamol and so many other companies in Cameroon. The question we are asking, privatizing all these state corporations, what benefits do we have in all this? What have we been benefiting? I want to start with you, Mr. Gentle. So many companies have been privatized yesteryears, and today is CAMAIRCO, part of CDC especially. We know the tea sector, some other sectors were privatized. What's your take about all this?
If you ask an expert or a teacher in economics what is privatization, he will define privatization as a process whereby a state-owned company is being given to an individual to manage. That is privatized, to privatize from state. The process, the issue of privatization in Cameroon is not starting today. When especially Mr. Popia took over from IJ in 1982, 4 years after that, in 1986, Cameroon became involved in serious economic malaise or crisis that attacked Cameroon from 1986. Almost even today, today we're having signs and symptoms of economic crisis with an increase in high rate of unemployment. I think the issue of privatization is not starting today. We have cases of some state companies that we privatized. At first there were some companies who have cam ship that we privatized, but we privatized in the early 1980s and 1990s due to the crisis that affected Cameroon economic crisis. We have some of them that were not even privatized, but we restructured. You have Cameroon was restructured or transformed into Camre. You have Sinec who was restructured or transferred into Camwata. You have Intercam transfer into Camtel and many others. I think even while we're talking today, part of the CDC is under process of privatization. The tea sector, we have the Tole, Justice and Do.
That has been privatized.
They have also been privatized. Mr. Moderator, no, as come back to say that if privatization it's not, it had a lot of weaknesses, it had a lot of disadvantages. Privatization had a lot of disadvantages related to what we are saying today about CAMAIRCO that they are about to privatize. It is had a lot of disadvantage in the sense that when there are some company that it should be managed only by the state. When the state manages a particular company, it provides its needs and take care of employers more than an individual. It is very clear. When a state-owned company is given to an individual, sometimes it will lead to mismanagement. Mr. Moderator, whether you like it or not, when you look at the way workers of Tole and do tea, workers who are tea workers at Tole and do tea, Jutisa, are being managed now under an individual. It's different from how they will be managed under the government. Ask them, go closer to Tole tea workers, go closer to do tea workers.
Even the quality has degraded.
So what we are saying is that there was certain time that sometimes these Tole workers, tea workers, they will cry for months that they have not been paid. Government cannot do that for an individual. So what I mean is that from our point of view, privatization is not the best. Because there are some state companies that properly be managed. Even we are even talking about only tea. What about a new? What about electricity? If from Sonnet to a new, whatever. It was first a state-owned company, and now it's an. I don't know why it's Parastar. Parastar is Parastar because it's also part of government. Parastar. Thank you very much, Doctor. I think with privatization, there's a lot of weaknesses. Weaknesses on the part of the citizens, especially employers, those who are working there. Because whenever a state-owned company is being given to an individual, no matter what the individual does, you cannot best manage it than the state itself.
Dr. Busi, we know that the main aim for privatization is to make sure that there's efficiency and maybe for the states to make more income and so on. But with Cameroon, we realize that it is a turnaround. What's your take about privatization in Cameroon? What is really the problem?
Mr. Moderator, this issue of privatization was launched in the 1990s. In 1990, a lot of state-owned corporations were privatized in this country. And that's why Cameroon is the way it is today. Many of these companies have closed down. There were many companies that were privatized, even some savon companies and so on. Many companies have lost down in Cameroon because of inefficiency, because they were not able to mismanagement, because they were not able to manage the resources. And I want to say that looking at the case of CAMAIRCO, in 2015, Mr. Moderator, CAMAIRCO had borrowed billions to rescue herself. Because I don't know, companies that are owned by the government could not even be managed. And I don't know the issue of mismanagement in some of our state corporations. We have seen cases where managers, directors have embezzled state funds, because some of these issues are because of embezzlement. And looking at CAMAIRCO, there's a consultant firm in America called Guam. And this company, this consultant firm, the Cameroon government still owes them. And Mr. Moderator, in 2015, this Cameroon government borrowed in 2015, they borrowed about 35 billion from this company to cater for the needs of CAMAIRCO. And they could not succeed. And I want to ask myself, is it an issue of mismanagement? And we have seen cases where, when CAMAIRCO was still just started functioning, in the late 2015, in the early 2015, CAMAIRCO had limited aircrafts, and CAMAIRCO could not go to many countries. Those were factors that affected CAMAIRCO. They could not go to, they had limited flights because of limited aircrafts, and they had to borrow billions of money from this consultant firm to rescue themselves. We have seen situations where they have CAMAIRCO has been rescued by the World Bank, by the International Monetary Funds. And I want to tell you something you don't know. Most of this privatization is caused by these world bodies. You see the World Bank, you see the IMF, when they monitor the situation, and that you cannot, they are able to, they pour money, people cannot do anything, they come in for selfish interests. And I tell you that, you look at CDC, we used to have the case of banana, and we had good bananas in this country that were being sent to mostly in France and so on, processed in France and so on. And later we had Demonte. Demonte came and took it. And we want to say that the issue of CAMAIRCO have suffered a lot in this country. And CAMAIRCO started domestic flights. And do you know that passengers could not even fly from business tycoons? At times, they will wait for aircraft for days, and they'll miss their flights.
And when it started the domestic flights, so many people appreciated that.
So many people appreciated,
has come up.
But that's why we are saying that
really
mismanagement and poor administration has led to this. CAMAIRCO could not effectively move from one area to another.
Okay, before I come to
passengers could not move from place to place. Look at the case of Sonnet, Mr. Moderator. When I was growing up as a young boy, we used to pay electricity bill for 1,000 francs at times, 2,000. As Sonnet, it was a state-owned corporation. And when it was privatized to AES Sonnet and now to the British firm, Enu, you see how expensive Cameroon, how the bills are extra high, and Cameroonians are suffering.
Even when there's no light.
When there's no light, and on daily basis there's no light. The lights are on and off, and you see the high rate of exploitation from Enu, Mr. Moderator.
When water is not flowing,
at times no water. You go to hostels in Boya today, you see that most hostels are digging boreholes because of lack of water from Camwater.
The bills still come.
And bills are still coming. So we are saying here that to an extent, it's because of the system of governance. Okay. It's a mixed system where the state wants to own companies, individuals want to own companies. But Mr. Moderator, in America and Nigeria, open system, like in capitalist system, individuals still own companies like this and manage very well because the issue of tax system. So the issue of tax system there is better. It's an open system where individuals can open firms and businesses, and it is better. Okay. But I want to say that the issue of privatization in Cameroon is becoming something that is sad. To tell you that Cameroon is in a serious economic crisis, to tell you that Cameroon is in a serious financial crisis, And even when such companies are privatized, where is the accountability? Where does the money go to? So I want to say in a nutshell that privatization is not really a good thing in our kind of society we live today, because most of these companies are exploiting the common people.
Mr. Njomo Cyril, one of the interests here of, I'm sure even the viewers, it should be to whom these companies are privatized to. Like in most cases, you hear they are privatized to foreign.
Can I just bring me? Individuals also buy companies. Like if you look at the case of CAMAIRCO, the CEO of the Anecdote Group, the owner of the Zonkat, Amugu Belinga, is the one that is struggling with the government to take over CAMAIRCO. And Mr. Moderator, and I ask myself, how can an individual wants to take a government corporation? It's sad.
Yeah. Now, I'm coming to you. One of the interests here is the people that this company are privatized to. You know, the way they treat their worker, you know, most of them are foreign individuals and companies, and even those in the country, they make billions of francs. But if you look at their workers, they don't look like people who work in such companies.
No, but when you say you look at their workers, they don't look like people.
Because if I see, for example, if I take the tea and I see maybe billions of francs or hundreds of millions is given out for, let's say, to assist the government, then the workers who are working in the tea plantation are not well paid. Is it not deplorable?
Even with the cutlass, you not force it down my throat. I would rather take the case of other companies where workers look fat. Yeah. But the issue does not appear as light as we are terming it. Okay. Doctor did well to bring us down memory lane to the 90s when the government finally resorted to privatize state-owned companies for at least 3 reasons. The first one being that there was economic recession in 1985. When they talk of economic recession, the prices of our raw materials were no more valuable in the world market. And since our currency is not strong, our currency value dropped. And so we were selling as usual, just that in returns, the money that was paid was no more meeting up with our need. I want to remind Cameroonians and those who are elected to watch us this evening that before 1985, integration into the public service was automatic. As soon as you have your A-level, in short, they started picking from first school living certificate. My mother is an example. She joined the civil service with first school living certificate. And she has worked and grown within the profession. And so, after 1985, after the economic recession, and we know within that period from 1980 to 1985, Amadou Ahidjo handed over power to Mr. Paul Biya, who has seized the power up to today. And so, there was a point of management that started coming in. They thought that they were still in France with the same lifestyle. And so, economic recession came in. They did not understood that they need to mismatch. Why our brothers, Thomas Sankara, graduated and went back because he will start revolution in Burkina Faso in 1986 and worked hard for 3 years before he's being sold out. And so it was the time to work closer to the people. But our leaders here choose to keep living the elitist side, and that is where now we rush to the World Bank. That is where privatization and other form of transferring competence to individuals and cooperation in the diaspora, in the international community start setting in. Because when you go to the World Bank and borrow money, they give you interest rates and deadlines that you need to meet up with your payment plan. Cameroon was unable, given that a new leadership have set in, despite the fact that I talk of inertia, whatsoever, they were not respecting, and so there was a new kind of laziness that stepped in. So our productivity dropped, coupled with the fact that Ahijo has launched an agricultural revolution. No incentive was given. Scholarship also dropped. In short, in the space from 1985 to 1990, the economy was down. And now, it is the World Bank that starts suggesting to Cameroon that it's not happening only to you. Your brother, the Gabon is with us. This other person is with us. This is our solution to move forward, because it's not happening only to you. They started proposing things like privatization. And when you privatize, what is the direct understanding for the layman? Yes, for the taxi driver that is following off on my 16, I greet you first. Is that since you don't have competent money to hire experts, for example, when you take companies, for example, like Sonagri, there were companies in the agriculture, education, and so many others. You take companies like that, you say you need technical expertise. You don't have money to pay them. So what do? You need to bring a company with that expertise so that they can employ and now pay you taxes. In the exchange of it is taxes. The tax that you are going to levy it on those companies, and with pre-concerted contract, meaning yes, you have to sign a quota. What they call a quota, meaning that those who work in those companies, either 23% or 50% have to be Cameroonian, because those are some of the contract terms. And so Cameroon saw that one as a new dawn. They saw it as a relief plan. And since then that we jump into it up to today, as one of the learned panelists on the planet was saying, we have not been able to surface. The proof. In 1983, Cameroon and China were at the same level of development.
Yes, before I come to that, I have to come because
40
we
years
have to.
After,
yes,
what have I done
we have to compare. 40
years after.
There are some countries and companies we have to compare that of Cameroon, and they're like the Ethiopian airline and some other. Let me first of all read a few. This one says, "Good evening, sir. With all due respect, please permit me to say this. It is not a lie, sir. Here in Boya, the issue of water and light is another case." This is Mr. Bertrand Tanto, who is writing, maybe as we were commenting on maybe Enyo and the rest that way. So he was just, okay, this one comes in to say, Cyril does not have to make everything to have a political connotation. Okay, the next one says, and Camtel, just to correct that, only 51% shares of CAMAIRCO is on sale, not the entire company. Even airports in London are owned by individual, and so anyone can also own CAMAIRCO. Virgin Atlantic is not owned by government. Privatization can also be a good thing. Okay, let me just take one again. And Camtel, just to, maybe they keep on coming. Okay, now I wanted to come to this just as this person is saying. Normally, the main aim of privatization, all of us have done economics, commerce, and is to like maximize profit, to make more profit. But with the situation of Cameroon, we still face one and the same problem. I want us to diagnose this because they are watching us. Maybe you people with your analysis, you can help them to come out of this quagmire. What do you have to say? Yes.
Mr. Moderator, when you look at privatization has cons and pros.
Yes.
It has advantages and disadvantages. But I want to say that in the context, we are talking in the context of Cameroon.
Yeah.
And what Mr. Njomo said is very correct. The issue in Cameroon is deplorable. It's deplorable when it concerns privatization. And we want to say that the advantages of privatization is that, Mr. Moderator, it can lead to competition. But have we seen a case in Cameroon where there are many companies competing? And in Cameroon, Mr. Moderator, how many companies do we have that because privatization should come as a result of redistribution of income. And we see that in Cameroon, industries and factories are focused only in a small particular area in Cameroon.
Okay, I want us to align with this. This person says, thanks for your program. I think your panelists are speaking out of ignorance. Can we compare the current BSEC and BSIC, or Post and Telecommunication and Camtel, just to correct that? Yes, just as, okay, general usage 51% of shares of CAMAIRCO is on sale, and no, they are setting to count. But you were just saying, yes, I want you to react to what...
It's not an issue of the panelists being ignorant. I think that...
Yes, I want you to back it.
I think that looking at what we are saying, Mr. Moderator, especially in countries where there's democracy and geopolitics, where there's redistribution of income, privatization could be very good because it can lead to competition. It can lead to greater efficiency, because we are saying that because we are looking at the development of privatization since the 1990s in our country. And we have seen that we are not saying that some companies are privatized, some shareholders are there. Not all companies are fully bought. But we want to say that, Mr. Moderator, from looking at the evolution, the historical development of privatization in this country from the 90s, you will see that the cost is on the consumer. It's on the consumer. It's the consumer that suffers the effect of privatization in this country, whereas in other countries, other countries, people gain jobs. Okay. People also gain jobs. And countries that they practice good governance and there's efficiency, there's competition. Privatization brings competition because you don't manage where you fall. And the disadvantage in the context of Cameroon is that privatization leads to monopoly. And we have seen the cases where a new has brought in monopoly of power in Cameroon, because a new feel that without a new, we have been complaining on daily basis.
Don't you think that the government...
Mr. Moderator, just permit me. We have been complaining on daily basis on the issue of high bills from a new. And on daily basis, have you seen any change? Compare the day of Sonne and a new. I earlier said here in those days, when we had Sonne in this country, Mr. Moderator, there was constant light many a times even. But compare with the days of a new, on the business people are suffering, because business people are suffering the multiplier effect of a new with high bills. Secondly, many a times the people who do food business, their products get bad, and it is many people are buying generators. If you look recently in Boya, people have been buying generators. So because of a new, it's not constant. So we are saying that why is government wants to privatize CAMAIRCO? Because of mismanagement.
That's why I wanted you to back it, because this person was just looking only at the BSEC.
We are not BSEC. It's involving. We used to have the Cameroon Bank.
Okay.
And so on. We used to have state-owned corporations that were, in the days of Aijo, the Cameroon Bank was functioning very well. We used to have banks in this country that were functioning. And we have banks now that are mostly, and I want to tell you that concerning the bank issue, people have shares. And that's why you see some of the companies are doing well, because the shareholders are struggling to work hard. And I want to say that monopoly of power is not good in our context. And privatization, let me end by saying that if you privatize something like CAMAIRCO, the disadvantage is that many people will lose jobs. And when CAMAIRCO was not doing well in the era of COVID-19, CAMAIRCO lost about 224 persons lost their jobs in CAMAIRCO. They could not pay them. And that's why government wants to privatize. And I want to say that if we are living in a country of good governance, and we are patriotic, we will not be privatizing things on a daily basis. Individuals can also initiate and bring up companies that can also support the government companies.
Okay, now we should be summarizing on this, and I want like you to end up with some of the companies who think that it shouldn't be privatized, it should be owned by the state, given that it should be enjoyed by the citizens of the country. What do you have to say, Mr. Gentle?
Let me do a big correction with some of the audience, the viewers, based on this. I think maybe the person did not get me well. We started by saying that due to the Cameroon economic crisis that began in the early 1980s, 1986, some government companies were completely shut down, closed down. Celocam was closed down, Sutop closed down. Coming to the banking sector, some of them were restructured. I think he had just picked particularly BSEC. If there was a BSEC rescue by what we are calling today.
And we are doing publicity to that bank.
Just go on.
Was BSEC now it's taken over by BSEC. I think the person picked on that, and
yes.
I think I always like it. It's not able to address that people are ignorant. I think we are not here. We are not ignorant to sit here and be talking to
and
people.
And it's good you are talking broadly.
And then when you are intellectuals, don't insult people. Be intellectual will be we don't stutter. Okay. We cannot come here and spend the evening here trying to educate ourselves as well as.
It's not ignorance.
You said that we are ignorant. I think it will correct that statement. So what we're saying is that some of these banks, from some of the issue of restructuring, it was a government endeavor to bomb the economy to generate income due to the economic crisis. There are some that are talking about the BSEC rescue by BSEC is okay, but there are some that when the restructuring, the
monopoly of power,
the situation became worse.
Yes.
We are talking about people are complaining. So we should not only pick on one side and then take that to condemn.
Because he said, do you know people who support BSEC? You see that most of them are government workers. And some of them are business guru. And nowadays, even most people are.
And if BSEC had to like wind up, is because most of the so many business people.
Yes, the shareholders.
So when they removed, it was political.
Yes,
too,
political
at that time,
too.
They had to withdraw their money, and the company had to.
Okay, so let me learn our students, Jomo. I also have something to say. We're running over this topic. I also have something to say about Mr. Jomo. I like analysis based on the Cameroon economic crisis that really affected Cameroon beginning with early 1986. That's just like one of the audience said that you are someone who politicizes everything. I think you also like politicizing the thing. It is clear that the Cameroon economic crisis was purely to be blamed on the Mr. Diaz regime, but not all. Not all. It's a combination. Let me just correction here. What pushed Cameroon to economic crisis in the beginning of 1980s is a combination of both internal and external forces. We should not only be talking about, because Mr. Jomo, I know that the present regime is an opponent to his own Maurice Kamto's regime. So everything they are like collide fighting political issues, but we should be clear that the Cameroon government is not fully responsible for the economic crisis. Let me learn. It was a combination of internal and external forces. One of the external forces that pushed Cameroon to economic crisis in the early 1980s was because of drop in the price of agricultural products in the world market, of which Cameroon was also the producer of products like cocoa, rubber, and other. And the price dropped in the world market, and that led to decline in Cameroon foreign import and Cameroon foreign not foreign trade, the foreign income for Cameroon, because they are dropping the price.
There was a deficit. A trade deficit.
Again, another external force was that generally in the world, in the early 1980s, the whole world was involved in economic crisis, and since Cameroon is part of the world, Cameroon also became a victim. And then lastly, the collapse of communist Eastern Europe. When communism collapsed in Eastern Europe, the market of the Eastern European countries, because during communism, most Eastern Europe that were under communism only do business within the communist world, while capitalists do their own business within the capitalist world. But when communism collapsed in the early 1980s, most of the countries, the Eastern Europe, were free. Their economy became open to the world. And most people who were supposed to invest in Cameroon, they invested in those, making Cameroon actually drawn short of. Because one of the causes of the economic crisis in Cameroon was because high rate of employment, given that they were absent of foreign investors. The foreign investors invested in Eastern European countries due to the collapse of communism that opened the Eastern European
even the issue of the Great Depression.
The
Great Depression also has affected the whole world, because there are many attempts at external factors that affect the whole world.
Because he capitalized only on the
domestic aspect.
Domestic problems that push Cameroon to economic.
Okay, before we come to Mr. Njomosiri, this one says, privatization of CAMAIRCO will actually bring you one step closer to a new era in Cameroon's international relations, because it is the going and coming of mostly business people that facilitates and regularize the evolution of internal growth. One, punctuality. A private, I don't know this shorthand, ETS, I don't know.
ETS, no.
Okay, private world will open its doors latest 7:15 a.m. But we have government. Okay, maybe offices. He's trying to talk of some of the companies that if it's a private office or a private company by 7:15, the doors are open. But if it's a government, they start work at 9 a.m. That's what he's saying. Then 2, politeness. Then he says with the private sector, there's more politeness than the government sector. 3, he said efficiency in a private establishment. You get according to your works. Meanwhile, with the government, you get paid for being employed. So if CAMAIRCO were to be privatized, it will increase and improve staff input to their jobs. That means better services and happier clients. I want to appreciate our viewer at least for contributing, although it's too, I wouldn't say it's too long, sorry.
No,
yes, we are very happy with your concern and educative message you have sent.
But it's based only on the advantages of privatization.
Yes.
We are discussing more on the disadvantages.
The person is also analyzing, so we too,
because we're only based on disadvantages.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Looking at CAMAIRCO, the context, I like what Mr. Njomo analyzed there. When we're looking at CAMAIRCO and other companies in Cameroon, let's situate the context of Cameroon, because they are just, our viewers are mostly looking at the advantages in the global world. Okay. Because it has a lot of disadvantage in the case of Cameroon.
With management, embezzlement, all those
corruption.
Okay, Mr. Njomosiri.
Yes, Mambo Williams, just to key in from where my friend Gentle settled, that I should not blame a man whose wife has been seized because the neighbor was handsome, and so I think those kind of stories, we are not children to sit here and believe. It's not forcing on the platform to allow my wife to be seduced by the neighbor. Okay, once I've said that, I want to say that to agree with the televiewer. I want to agree with the televiewer that yes, we are naive here. Just that I'm not the one asking NAO to be cutting lights the whole a whole week in a city like Boya. I'm not the one that closed the former Biao. There was a bank in this country called Biao. Yeah. My father left a lot of money there. After this program, I'll look for him so that he can tell me where I can go and take it. Yes, I'm naive, but I also want to understand why is it that students of ENS, of NSEC, of KPM do not receive salary like students of ENAM? Do you think it's by mistake? Government have sovereignty only over some few colleges again, and because those are sovereign duty, education have been attacked. When you see a country where the primary system and the secondary system are in the hands of individuals, because the fact that trainees from those schools are not catered for simply means that the school fees that they pay is what is being used to take care of themselves, just as our university. Mr. Bia himself went to school under scholarship. Are you getting me? Under privatization, we cannot have those kind of things. He is talking about a new era for CAMAIRCO. I will beg to differ. Yeah. I will beg to differ because this is not an industry that is being created today. It has seen so many names.
Yes.
It was first of all, he has already sold some shares sometimes. It's not the first time that is occurring.
I like your analysis.
It's recently that, I mean, if not some 6 years down lane, that they took full autonomy over it until the president of the republic went to Douala.
2015.
And so, if 5 years again they are coming back to the same to privatize it, they should understand that it's because he has not been able to manage. But I'm not going to limit the misfortune of CAMAIRCO only to the management system. First, we witness in this country a kind of migmaro at the helm of the management of that institution, where a former GM of the institution was promoted. I mean, a former president of the board of trustees was demoted to the GM position, and I mean, then another person nominated.
Positions were
it was terrible. And people were asking themselves that where have you ever seen where they take you from a bigger position and drop you down for you to be efficient? And it happened like that overnight because they changed the minister who was former Ega Mebengo, who is now having some nice time in Konengi with his other friends, and they brought in another individual, the current minister of transport. His name is skipping my mind, and that is how Cameroon have been suffering, because when in 2015 the head of state was launching that new era of CAMAIRCO, I think the baptized name that we have today came from that installation ceremony. A lot of things were set. Notably, there was a 5-year strategic plan on how to revive CAMAIRCO, and that is why the national flying that took place some 2 years after was not a mistake. It's not happened by mistake. It was within the plan that I'm talking about. Just that the changes at the level of the ministries. Every minister come in with his own agenda and caprices and do what he feels has to. And that is where we have to blame. And I'm sorry again to come and bring Mr. B is responsible because he is the one shifting the players in the draft box. And so sometimes to punish some player, he shift them and put in the wrong position. And so the casualties that they do there, who do you want me to allocate those casualties to? That is exactly when they were removing the former minister at the presidency. I mean, the former minister of defense in charge, the former minister in charge of defense at the presidency, and sending him to the ministry of transport. I think they were looking for a way to punish him because they have already noticed a lot of mismanagement. Okay, but just that they forgot to understand that as he's going there, he's going to manage people. He's going to manage a budget. He's going to manage a program. Don't forget, we should not forget that it is in 2014 in this country that they told us about the Vision 2035. And so all what we are doing is within a particular framework that is going to take us to Vision 2035. I want to tell you that there has been 3 adjustment plan already, just from 2014 to 2020. Mr. Man, sorry. Mambo Williams.
Okay.
Are we really ignorant?
You should take your breath. You should take your breath.
Mr.
I learned from you before.
Mr. Moderator, permit me
yes,
say that.
Let me say, with all what he has analyzed, is it like we are putting a kind of triangle peg on a square hole where it can't fit, whereby people who are not fit somewhere are being put? Maybe an economist is being put to manage somewhere that he's not fit.
That's not the first time, Mr. Mambo Williams. We have seen situations in Cameroon whereby you take somebody, an engineer, and you appoint an engineer, the Minister of Public Health. We have seen situations in this country where somebody risks agriculture, you put the person, the Minister of Finance, to manage money. When there are people who have gone to school, they have learned money and banking, they have done accounting. Mediocrity. It kills nation building. So we are saying that meritocracy is very good to put square pegs in square holes in our companies. We are talking on the government sector that is falling and they are privatizing. Let me tell you, look at individual owned companies like Nextel. Yeah. It's a group. Look at Nextel, for instance, here in Cameroon, and Dawara has the highest share. You saw what the common Nextel workers suffer lately because of not payment of salaries for overtime.
Yes.
And if you look at those who manage the day-to-day affairs of Nextel and MTN, let me tell you what they pay them. They suffer under rain and sun. The meager money they give them, you cry, Mr. Mojito. So I think that is an issue of governance and state structuring. If we restructure our companies, our institutions, I feel that we will limit the issue of privatization. and individuals will come in with companies and they'll be able to compete now with state-owned companies.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Don't you think that monopoly shouldn't be part
monopoly
of
is not good. Monopoly brings...
Because
monopoly,
maybe it's become monopoly, that's why...
Mr. Mojeto, monopoly is bad in the sense that when the monopoly is now on the individual who owns a company or a group of individual or we also have understand that we have multinational corporations.
Okay.
That also buys that comes into countries and buy firms and companies to own, and they exploit the citizens because their objective is for profit making. And you understand that state-owned companies are not out for profit making.
Yes.
They are not out for profit making. But when you privatize, the company comes now, their objective is for high cost and profit making.
They decide the destiny of this.
They decide the destiny. And who suffer the multiplier effect? The consumer. Those who consume. Even if you don't consume, even if you go and off your meter, you pay meter rent bill. You pay taxes. You pay taxes. But what we are saying here is that if we have strong institutions and our companies are decentralized, where in Cameroon we have redistribution of companies in all areas, because what is killing us is our concentration of companies in one particular area in this country. If we redistribute our companies, we have many companies, and there's efficiency and there's privatization, will be competing. Competition will come in now. But now that we are privatizing the main companies in our country, we also have countries where individuals own airlines, and they manage it very well, very, very efficient.
Okay, let me just say...
The problem here is that Cameroon Airlines to CAMAIRCO, what changed?
Yes.
So our state-owned corporation should be able to manage certain corporations. You understand?
Good.
We should not sit one day at the privatize the petroleum there. They should not privatize us. And you know that these multinational companies and Russia and America, they have eye on our petrol.
Maybe
so those are things that
monopoly should be discouraged.
We have, as a country, we must have patriotism and be able to manage our resources.
Okay, just 1 minute on this topic. I did not really expect that people have so much to really talk on this, but I promise one day we shall still come to that, so that I will just take another topic and summarize on it. Just 1 minute as I begin with you.
Yes, just to further add that on the 19th of November 2019, GCAM, the patronal for companies in Cameroon, wrote to the government that instead of pursuing the venture of privatizing a state company and corporation, they should rather go for public-private partnership.
Okay.
It is an initiative that is going to help the government to catch up, first, at the level of employment. Okay. Second, at the level of follow-up. Through this, there are Cameroonians or there are some African other brothers that have money that could be used to inject. CAMAIRCO, for example, needed some billions to be injected when the new management or the current management took office. But they did not give them that money, despite the business plan that was submitted to the government. They did not put the money in. And so, when our planes now started falling, they were using, the government needed to, when the Minister of Finance by then, went and coughed a certain billion just for maintenance. And now they went on air and said that so that money was available. Why did they not put it in their business plan so that they should go effective? I want to tell you that the ball game here is more of management than truly redistribution. Because if the end goal was to redistribute the good, nobody will be against.
Okay, you have 10 seconds more. Let me just ask you, don't you think, as a politician, don't you think it's high time our politician in the parliament should even think, sit and say that there shouldn't be so much monopoly? They should allow our businessmen to invest in every sector they want to, and maybe empower the private sector.
Talking about monopoly is good to an extent, if you have the people at heart. Yes. If you have the people at heart, refuse external aid, because when you start borrowing too much, you cannot think of having monopoly. Because
borrowing also leads to corruption.
Yes. When you are a debtor, when you know you are owing somebody, did you not see at the early hours of coronavirus, Cameroon started praying that they should reduce their bills. Yes. What is the relationship between debts and a pandemic, a health pandemic? I think that will take us shortly to the next topic. We will be talking about Nelson Mandela, okay, where he talks about identity pandemic.
Okay, Mr. Gentle, don't you think that in the days we had just one telecommunication structure, it was terrible, but nowadays we have about 4. Is it not better than monopoly?
Monopoly, all of them, as you see what one of the viewers said, all of them are having advantages and disadvantages. All of them have advantages. It depends. That's why I go back to what the doctor was saying, that it depends on the state, it depends on the country.
Context.
Yeah, the context within it. Because in Western society like America, there are individuals who take over the state company and do properly well, excellent well, and then take proper care and improvement and many other things. When we come to cases of, I was happy when the audience sent a lot of advantages of privatization, he gave a lot of advantages related to CAMAIRCO, telling us about how the way different structures, different staffs, regularity, unlike government workers and other. But I also had to ask the very urgent, what about toiletry? What about the workers? Ask the worker, go to that worker and ask them what they used to receive under when the estate were under the government, and what is going on now with privatization.
So most of them die without enjoying their retirement benefits.
That is what I'm saying. I think the thing is the two-way advantages and disadvantages. We depend the context that the thing for.
Mr. Moderator, I still remain on the issue of context, whether I like it or not.
Okay.
And privatization is not good in our governance context.
But is it like the Cameroonian managers today, they need some moral...
And if you know the money they pay some of these directors and managers in such corporations, you'll be terrified. Millions of money, allowances, but they cannot manage some of these companies. How on earth can we be privatizing our only airline, Mr. Moderator? And let me bring a historical perspective. If we had
20 seconds.
A two-state federation, a federal system, whereby each state could be controlling the affairs of their environment. Yes. Look at the Tico airport. Where is it today? Look at the Bafut airport. It's now a military base. Those are places that, Mr. Moderator, each state could be able to manage the affair, and also the central government now provides support.
2 years ago, they talk of the renovation of the Tico and
it was renovated, but how functional? How functional? Even
the Ambas attack one plane there,
and what about the Douala airport that was renovated? Okay. And the money that was taken to renovate, and we think that our issue is the problem of management and putting square pegs on square holes.
We are still talking on one airport.
One of Crossview on CMTV.
The one airport could not even go international to many countries. And passengers, even we started with domestic airline. I thought that it would be my first time to enter a plane, Mr. Moderator. What happened? And you could see people in the northern part crying that they have paid their airline, they have booked for a plane, and the plane could not take them to their destination. Business people. Okay. We have to be honest to be this country.
Okay. Dear viewers of Crossview on CMTV, we are happy that you are there, and we say you can watch us on YouTube. That's CMTV Buzz. That is the Buzz is B-U-Z-Z. You can watch us live, all the programs on CMTV. As at now, we shall go for a break. When we come back, then we take the next step.